Hey everybody, Happy New Year. Just wanted to take a second and shoot a video to address the post I put on Facebook's group yesterday. And I'm going to try and be quick about this. I shot this video twice already and for some reason my camera keeps shutting off. So basically I posted up that I was going to kswap the car. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that posted on my thread for being respectful. I know a lot of times kswap threads turn into a crap fest, and I just want to say thank you guys for keeping that out of it. So let's just jump right into it. So when I originally built the engine that's in the car now, I had just cooked a ringland at a track event and I knew I needed to do something. I had prepared a spreadsheet showing the cost to power output for doing a 3S GTE build, a 5S GTE build, a kswap, a 2GR, and my dream build would have been a 4G63. So at the time I knew I was going to have to do one. So I immediately ended up crossing off the 4G63 because there's nothing out there to allow it to be plug and play. It would have been a total custom fabrication. The 2GR was next because I come from a V6 car platform, so I was familiar with V6s. And when I really started looking into the cost to build, modify, make the power I wanted, and have the car where I wanted it, the price was astronomical because it would have required, all the same parts as stock, and now I would be getting into custom manifolds if I wanted to do turbos or if I was going to supercharge it. I tried looking for like an XZS V6 out of a Lotus that with their engine and their software makes 340 horsepower stock instead of the 280 or whatever the regular 2GR makes. And that was like a $5,000 or $6,000 engine and just a lot of different stuff like that. So I started looking more away from that. And the next thing obviously was just rebuilding the 3S that I had, which was a Rev 3. It would have cost nothing other than the engine build because I wouldn't have to buy any ancillary products to support the swap. So that put it at the top of the list. So I look at the cost of building block engine, all the accessory stuff, the intake manifold, exhaust manifold, blah, 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 to get to the power level I wanted. And I knew it would be close to where most people would feel unsafe with running a 3S block, but the saving grace was I wasn't planning on drag racing the car, so I wasn't worried about the shock load on the block. And I knew that it wouldn't be running, balls to the wall max power all the time because I really do enjoy road racing more than drag racing, so the car would probably never see the drag track. So it was down to the K, the 3S, or the 5S. The 3S was in the lead at this point, and I started talking to Aaron at ATS about doing the 5S build. And for some reason, my computer, I didn't know it at the time, but it was getting ready to die, did not like Aaron's email address or his website or something, but I was having a real hard time communicating with him. And I was kind of turned off by that because I was like, well, how the hell am I supposed to do business with a company 2,000 miles away when, I'm constantly getting emails returned to me as undeliverable. And like I said, it was all my computer. I understand that. Shortly after I committed to building the motor that's in the car now, I ended up replacing my laptop and it totally solved the issues. And then I was like, kind of screwed myself on that. So the reason the The 5S didn't happen though, was when I considered the 3S versus the 5S, I could do a 2.2 3S and I would save some money by not having to buy the 5S specific ancillary products and not having to buy a 5S, a 98 plus 5S, so I would have a core to send to them. And I was kind of trying to get the car back together as quick as possible at that point. So I didn't want to have to buy the donor block, ship him the donor block, wait for him to build it, ship it back. So when I was dealing with him, I was talking with Ty at TCS, and Ty had a Gen 3 block there that he could immediately start building and deliver to me and grab my core at the same time. So I would really have almost no downtime with the car. So at that point, when I looked at the K, the ancillary cost of getting the wiring harness conversion, the Hux Cannibal kit so I could reuse my transmission, the mount kit, everything else, I was less inclined to go that way simply because I didn't know Hondas. Never been a Honda guy. Had some Hondas back in the day. I had a 96 Civic and a 98 Integra way back in 96 and 98. But they were so new at the time that nobody was doing anything with them. So I wasn't a Honda guy. I mean, I got into cars right after that. I got into cars maybe 99. And that was with the 3000 GT. So my first real experience with getting into cars was with twin turbo V6s, not Hondas. And just didn't want to have to learn something totally new. So I kind of threw the kswap off the table and called up Ty and committed to it, and he got to work. So I'm going to grab this. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this video short because my phone keeps shutting off. So this is what I ended up with. So it's a 2.2 stroked Rev 3 built by TCS. They built the head also with cams in it and all the fun jazz. It's got an ATS turbo kit on it. It's got an ATS straight runner intake. Still the stock trans. So at this point, my goal for the car was strictly for track racing, for road course racing. So I knew, 450 horsepower was really my goal, and that dictated my turbo choice. It dictated a lot of the aspects of this build. So in the last, I would say 3 months, a lot of my friends have started switching from drag racing to roll racing events. And the top speed aspect of it kind of got me excited. The problem I was going to have is a lot of these events, because there's limited space, you have to meet certain horsepower goals in order to compete. And a lot of the events that are by me, 600 to 700 horsepower is the minimum you can have to compete in these events. And the reason why is because the way they run them around here, it's like you go around and you start your roll, and before you're even off the track, the next group is already being sent. So they don't want to risk, if a 700 horsepower car is racing next to a 400 horsepower car and you have two 700 horsepower cars coming up behind you, they don't want to risk the car behind you catching up. So they kind of do it, and they also want to do it so it's like photo finish kind of thing where the cars are close at the end. They don't want it to be where it's like one-sided mass murder. So, I mean, I can't dictate how the people run their events, so the only choice I have is to conform. So with this setup being the way it is, knowing that, can I turn the boost up and possibly be fine? Yes. But do I want to take a $5,000 gamble that my block doesn't crack? So I knew at this point I was either going to have to address the block with doing
a 5S block, which would cost, minimum $4,000 between buying the core, buying, the ancillary products to bolt onto the core, having the machine work done and the block built. And then the car would be down minimally 2 or 3 months because I'd have to pull this, take the timing components off, take all the stuff off the engine so I could get the block prepped to swap it, swap the block, and then put it all back in. So that would pretty much knock me out of being able to do any of the first round events coming into the springtime because I already missed all the events last year because pretty much everything in New York was canceled because COVID. So I didn't want to have a second year go by where I'm missing events. So that's when I started really looking into, should I do a kswap? And it was still one of those things where it was like kind of, I didn't want to do it. I'm not a Honda guy. I don't have the knowledge of it. I didn't know what I was going to be looking at, what I was going to need, what engine was even worth building. So, I mean, I've been listening to the Hux Racing podcast since the beginning, and Eric's always been really helpful with, giving out information, but I also understand that he's running a business. So I don't want to pester him to educate me on Honda stuff. So I reached out to a couple of the other frequent listeners, Ransom Hall being the main one, to kind of educate me on kswaps. So he gave me, the 30-minute rundown on, what blocks are good, what blocks are bad, what cars you want it out of, what's the frequently swapped motor, what's, this, what's that. And so I started looking into it. And with the average K24 block, there are people taking a stock block car and just bolting, exhaust manifold, turbo, and aftermarket ECU. And, obviously the little stuff like injectors and things like that so they can run the boost. But the blocks can handle 700 horsepower with no problem. So now I'm looking, well, I can spend $4,000 or $5,000 to upgrade my block in this with a built block, or I got this motor for $500. I can spend a couple $1,000s on the cannibal kit, on the wiring harness conversions, on, you can use a stock intake manifold. So for the turbo swap. So then I'd really just need an exhaust manifold, and my turbo from this I would swap over. So now with that, I can turn my boost from 450 on this, where I feel like that's kind of getting close to the max out on the block, to I can max the turbo out on this at 600 horsepower without even having to open the block. Now, I built the head in this car to improve the flow and have a better RPM limit and everything else. This head, stock, flows better. So I don't need a built head. I don't need a built bottom end. I got all the accessories with the motor. I mean, this was a Facebook like garage pump and dump meet, like thought I was going to die. But you can get a JDM block for less than $800 that'll have everything: the intake manifold, the exhaust manifold, all the accessory stuff, cut off wiring harnesses, blah, blah, blah. So you can do that. If you plan on building the motor, you can get like a CRV motor, JDM CRV motor, for like $400 and go at it that way, build the bottom end. And then a lot of people will do a ported head on that because since the head casting on those are really thick, you can actually crazy port them out and get really good flow out of them, I found out. But so he gave me some basic information, and I did a little bit more research. I saw that this would meet my goal. It would be cheaper to meet my goal. And the packaging on the motor isn't as large. So instead of having, my intake manifold in the trunk, because it's backwards. The intake manifold is on the back side of the motor, so it's going to get more heat away from the passenger cabin and put it on the trunk side, which I don't care about. You know, it would also be better for running the car and access to the turbo and everything else, because now it's all going to be sitting on this side. So it's going to flip the engine around. So I was like, okay, well, that's a plus. And, you know, then I can do a top mount turbo versus the bottom with the ATS kit. So I could, you know, have the turbo closer to the vents in my engine lid. So it's like, okay, so that's another plus. So I start looking at all these little things and I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let me just grab a block so I can physically put my hands on one, see what's going on with it, and, you know, make a decision what I want to do. So, armed with a little bit of knowledge, I did the dumbest thing possible. I ran out and bought a block because it was local, and the guy told me it was one thing, and it wasn't, but I didn't know what I was looking at the time, so I just had to take his word for it. So, at $500 for the block, I really don't feel bad. It came with, you know, a new alternator. It looks like a new starter. The head is complete. The pans, it's got a different aluminum oil pan on it. The block is in good shape. So in the next couple days, I'm going to be stripping this block fully apart to inspect like the cylinder bores and things like that. But you know, I don't feel bad about the purchase. And you know, coming from hating on Hondas to having this in my garage and realizing that this will meet my goals in a stock configuration, not even having to open the long block, I'm kind of upset that I didn't give this the due diligence it deserved on the first time around. Because for what I put into that motor, I could have bought a fully built by the best Honda shop out there motor and been making 1,000+ horsepower reliably. So am I upset by it? No, because I'm really happy with this build and I'm really not gonna say that I'm disappointed in it because I love the way the car drives. I love the way it sounds. I like the packaging on the motor because the engine bay isn't too busy, but it's busy enough where it's like when you show someone the engine bay, it looks impressive. You know, I have really good intake air temperatures the way it's set up. You know, it's set up nice. It's really just the strength of the bottom end that has me questioning, you know, sticking with this block. And I know a lot of the guys that are MR2 purists are going to say, do the 5S. But like I said, when I looked into that, it would have only been like another $1,000 to do the billet block. And then I could have swapped all my parts over. And it would have actually been cheaper in the long run to do the billet block, I think. So now this is the where I'm going. And like I said, I've joked about selling this already. Realistically, it's going to come out, go on an engine stand. I'm going to build this, and knowing me, I'm not going to leave it stock. I'll probably do, there's a company that does a real simple bottom end build for like $2,000, and then the stock head flows really well. So I'm just going to bolt the head back on, and I'm going to go at it with that. And I'm going to probably end up maxing out this turbo because everybody's telling me these turbos, this is a PTA 5858. Everybody tells me that's a real small turbo on a Honda. I'm going to max it out pretty quick. So, and if that's the case, that's going to put me up, you know, high 500s, low 600s. The turbo theoretically maxes out at 620. So if I make 580 on that, I'd be super happy. So we're going to see what happens. So I don't want to say I don't want the people that don't like Hondas to watch this because I really do value MR2 owners' input and I want them to be involved. You know, I try not to build junk. I try and do everything the right way. I don't just slam parts together. And I want the people out there to see what goes into putting a different motor in the car. You know, a lot of these guys that have swaps in their cars don't even do the swaps themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, honestly, if I had the money and I could drop my car off at someone else and have this done, I would. But I enjoy building it and putting it in. I might not build the bottom end. I might not build the head if I go that way, just because time is money for me. And with 3 kids, it's really hard to sit down in my garage and port heads and assemble engines, because if I get called away because my wife is just getting overwhelmed with the 3 kids, it's hard to walk away from building an engine like that, because all it takes is missing one step and something is not going to go right. So with that being said, I want you guys to, just like when I was building that one, I want you guys to come along for the journey. If you don't like that I'm putting a K in there, be respectful, but take something away from the videos, learn something. This is as much of an education for me as it will be for some of the other people out there. A lot of people always ask, well, why would you kswap an MR2? Well, let's find out why. Like I said, I'm waiting for Scott to message me back. I'm going to get this finished up being tuned on pump gas, and then I'm switching it over to E85. My goal is to build the K probably through the middle of the year. And then I'm hoping in June or July to swap it into the car. So by that time, I'm hoping to have 3 or 4 track events with the 3S in the car. Now, I'm doing that because I want to know what this is going to feel like at that power level. And between now and then, my goals might change. I don't think they will, but they might. And if they do change back to I just want to road race the car, then I might very well leave the 3S in there, and I'll have the K. And like I said, I'll look for an MRS shell and I'll swap it into the MRS. So right now, though, the plan is by mid-year to have the K in here and up and running, and try and do 1, maybe 2 track events with it this year. I'm hoping to do 6 to 8 track events. I know that'll probably get cut short just because with COVID still being an issue, I know a lot of the track events last year were cutting down on the number of people that they were allowed and the number of cars per group they were doing. So I did get my shift cart redone this year, so I'm planning on doing some shift cart stuff. So that'll kind of fill in where I'm missing track days, but that's what my plan is. So we're going to build this. This is going to finish getting tuned. Like I said, I want to keep it around 450 wheel. This, when I build it, I'm probably gonna stick it for 550 with the turbo in there and see how that feels. I mean, if it feels like a death trap, I'm not going to keep it in there. But we'll see what's going on. So thanks for listening to me ramble. Thanks for not beating me up too bad on the Facebook page. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see. If you have any Honda questions, let me know. Like I said, this is a learning experience for me. If you have any advice, let me know. If you have any different ideas of something I could do different that I didn't think about, just share it. I mean, knowledge is power, and I never claim to have all the knowledge. Let's cut out some of the negativity in the community again and get back to, enjoying cars and having a great time. So thanks for following along. I'll see you guys soon.